This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by liner notes. Learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry professionals I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician on topics such as marketing, songwriting, touring, sync licensing, and much more. Sign up for liner notes at unstarvingmusician.com. It's an email newsletter from yours truly in which I share some of the best knowledge gems garnered from the many conversations featured on The Unstarving Musician. You'll also be privy to the latest podcast episodes and liner notes subscriber exclusives. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. This is The Unstarving Musician. I'm Robonzo. This is my podcast. It features conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals with occasional special topic episodes featuring yours truly. A glimpse into the minds of my varied guests, all intended to help independent music artists better understand the marketing, business, and creative processes that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Welcome to another episode. How are you? Where are you? And yes, what are you wearing? Thank you for tuning in. It is a pleasure to be in your earbuds or on your speakers today. Forgive the sound of my congested voice. I am congested in the worst way. I guess it's allergy season. The bugs are going around, but I've got it. I've had it. I'm ready to be done with it too. That day's coming soon, I'm sure. All right, let's see what I can do here. Today I speak to Tracee Perrin. She is a graduate of the Musicians Institute in Hollywood, where she learned how to produce and engineer her own music. In 2010, Tracee was accepted into the ASCAP Lester Sill Songwriters Workshop, an experience she says reinforced her desire to build a career in music. Tracee has roots in LA but now lives in Nashville. Yes, trendy Nashville. She has a new single out called Poison in the Water that will be part of a forthcoming EP, her first body of work in over 10 years. We talk about the evolution of her single, Poison in the Water, and we also talk about Nashville's population explosion, her performances with So Far Sounds venues, her experience in musical theater, self-care for the voice, her 2024 release plans and strategies, and I also asked Tracee what slows her down the most and what inspires her. We'd had a very pleasant conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it, and I think you will enjoy finding Tracee's music on her website at traceeperrinmusic.com, and she is also Tracee Perrin Music on the Facebook and Instagram. All right, please enjoy my conversation with Tracee Perrin. So you have a new single coming out, right? Poison in the Water. Is it coming out on the 25th still?
It is. I'm very, very excited about that.
How long has it been since you dropped the single?
Oh, my Lord. It has been probably close to 13 years, 12 to 13 years.
And would that prior endeavor been the Providence EP?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It was tough to find, and I like it. I've been listening to it this morning, so I think you need to prominently display it on your website. Do you? Yeah.
I know it's sort of been so much time that I was on the fence, you can evolve as an artist and, I want to, I don't know if it fully always represents where I am now, but it is a part of my journey. So you're right. I probably should own that a little bit more. I did a few songs here in on the way to moving to Nashville, there was a song that I recorded called Losing the War. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of in the transition, and I think that I just didn't really put it out there on a significant level because there was so much going on and trying to just get here and get settled, and I didn't really have my ducks in a row for that one. But that's another song that I've kind of had tucked away in the ether, so you might be able. I think I still have that one up in some places. So
well, I did find Providence on Bandcamp. I don't think this other one that you're talking about is there, but maybe I'll find it, or you can send it to me. I'd like to hear it. But it's funny. I talked to so 13 years is a pretty good span of time. I myself have recorded 2 singles in the last 5 years, and I don't know how I'm going to feel when I finally get off my arse and record something new. But I hear maybe young artists especially, but I hear them always talking about evolving, and yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely hear changes, but it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of funny at the same time. It's like, man, you've hardly had time to get established. What are you talking about evolving?
Mm, mm-hmm.
But we do. I mean, for various reasons. I was just talking to a young lady yesterday that um, she really, really, really loves blues.
Mm-hmm.
She is venturing more into the pop world right now, and as we were jokingly saying, she wants her music to be found, so she's moving into the pop world. But she will still
Okay.
she'll keep those blues roots. But anyway, she had the same kind of thing. Yeah, I'm kind of evolving, but she had a bit more of I think she had a bit more of a logic to her sentiment about changing, and she also and probably most people would say this. Maybe you feel the same about yourself. She feels like she's keeping a lot of those roots, in her case, blues, in what she's doing moving forward.
Yeah, I think that, there are certain like core, sort of like core memories. I think there are certain core things when you decide to pursue music and things that really inspire you or that really make you feel, that move you in a way that you want to create that experience for other people. And I know that I have you know, sort of my roots. I was raised on a lot of both country music and then some Motown and some pop music, of course. But really, for me, when I was like, okay, like being a songwriter, there were certain artists that really fell more into like the folk Americana and country realm that I really gravitated towards. Um, I love harmonies. I love singing harmonies. So anything that has like really strong roots in that is really does move me, and I want to be able to create an experience for people that make them feel the way that I feel listening to that type of music. Um, and so that's always in the back of my mind, even though I may play around with some other, elements and textures and things like that that may not be rooted in one genre specifically. Um, at its core, for me, if I can just stand and sing a song and play a song in a really stripped down way and move people, that is the most important thing to me.
I get that. And stylistically, what can we expect from Poison in the Water?
Poison Water was quite a journey because I had always, played it mostly on my own with my acoustic guitar, and it had this sort of gritty and kind of folk rocky kind of tone to it when I would sort of play it. And when we were playing around in the studio, Alex Wong and I, Alex's process is really interesting because it's not like, hey, I really hear guitars and this instrument and that instrument on a song. He's more like, let's get in the room together, let's just have a conversation about what the song's about, and he has a chalkboard wall in his studio, and you just write the words that you want that are associated with the emotional journey of the song or associated with the message of the song, or what you want people to feel or when they're listening to it, and sort of taking our cues from that and then figuring out what elements, what textures, what things to bring in, that will create that experience. And so he creates a lot of space for being able to explore different things in that arena. And so the vibe of Poison Little Water is sort of, it's a little spooky and eerie. It's a little gritty, and it kind of grows, from the beginning to the end of the song, where it's just like this big emotional, connection and big emotional feeling instrumental wise. And so we were purposeful in layering the different textures in the song to kind of evoke that eerie, gritty, emotional journey.
Man, I love Alex's chalkboard idea. I love myself. I really like whiteboards, and I don't have one in my studio, but I think I may have to get one now after hearing that.
Yeah, it's a nice way for the artist to sort of just get out of the, like, I guess the monotony of just like thinking about like instruments. And really there are so many things you can do and play with around in the studio, and sometimes you kind of let those things get in the way and not let the song lead the journey. And he's really about what serves the song best, regardless of like what you think should be and what other people think it should be, like what is serving the message in the song and how you want people to feel about when they listen to it. And so I really appreciate that process, because I emailed him before. I was like, so I'm hearing this kind of vibe and this tone related to these artists. And, you're told to have reference tracks and things like that. But he's like, that's all good and well. However, we're just going to sit and talk about it a little bit. And we'll see what happens when we get in the studio. So he's really true to that process. And I think for me, I think it's a nice way to be able to explore things you didn't even think about or consider where a song could go.
Hey, I mentioned the singles I did in the last 5 years. So my studio and recording experience, it's all was done remotely too. It happened to be during the pandemic, but um, you mentioned reference tracks, and I think I've had on several occasions people mention reference tracks, and I hadn't really thought a lot about what they are. So are these just tracks that you would take? So like for instance, when I was talking to a guy that worked with me on my song, I said I'm kind of thinking the vibe of this album, this band, for this aspect of it. Are you literal? Is it literally taking in tracks that sort of reference your ideas, or is it something different?
It's mostly that, at least my understanding of it. Sort of trying to get just an idea of either how a song is arranged, or different elements or textures or tones of certain things that you also want to try to emulate, or just like to help inspire the direction of the song. Um, it's like in the style of type of thing. And
Got it.
so I actually always kind of, I struggle with that a little bit, just because, and which is why I appreciate Alex's process so much, is because there's so much music out there. And sometimes what you think your song, you want it to sound like, it may not actually serve the song. Because if you really admire a certain artist or a certain way someone's recorded something, it doesn't mean it's necessarily right for every song that you might do. And there's also a vast, endless options sometimes. And for me, I'm the kind of person where I get lost in the options. Like, I will, if I'm shopping for anything, like I want to see all of the options, and then I confuse myself. So I had to be very careful if I'm, seeking out reference tracks, because I'm like, but I love that. But, and then I'm like, I have no idea what I want, and I think that's why Alex is like, let's just start with a clean slate, and let's talk about, for you and this song, what is your connection to it, and what do you want people to feel when they listen to it? And then let's go from there.
That sounds like a good approach. I hate too many options. I'll just leave the room if if I get too many.
Exactly.
Yep. So how long have you been in Nashville?
It'll be 10 years this June, actually.
Okay. So you've been around to see a lot of the explosive growth.
I have, yes.
The woman I talked to yesterday is living in Nashville as well. I forgot where she is from, but I think she's been there less time than you, but we were talking for a moment about the growth and going crazy there.
Yes, it's definitely changed a lot since we moved here. I've sort of had a front row seat to a lot of it. I work in real estate.
Okay.
And so I've sort of been in the trenches of that for about almost 9 years now. So it's always a topic of conversation for most people that either have just moved here or even that have been here a while. It's interesting to hear people's take, because some people really love it and other people feel like it's been too much too fast and they don't really love the direction. I think that it's not going to stop. I think it's just going to continue for a good long while. And I hope that some of the things, that make Nashville, that attracted people here in the first place before it got crazy will still be preserved. But that takes actually a lot of effort to really stay true to those things. There's a lot of businesses and Nashville staple venues and things like that have really been put at risk with the growth, and it's been a pretty unfortunate to see.
Yep, I can imagine. I read that you probably trolling your social media, but I read that you did a So Far Sounds show in November. I think it was this last November in Louisville, and I wanted to ask you how it went. And the reason why is because a guy who was working with So Far Sounds, possibly from Kentucky, I can't remember. I know they're a very distributed organization to I guess, to put it mildly, but I'm always interested because I think after I had that interview, one of the first conversations I had with someone was not like great experiences. But since then, I've spoken with a lot of people, a few people, I should say, who have had some positive experiences. But what can you tell me about yours?
Yeah, so this was this past November, so just a short while ago, in Louisville, Kentucky, which it was, I had a great time. It was one of those things where, so when you are a so far sounds artist and you have like your artist profile or dashboard or whatever, you can kind of choose what cities, like where you're willing to travel and do a show, and it's worldwide. So they do have, like you said, a wide distribution. I had forgotten actually that I had, chosen Louisville. I think I put like Louisville and Atlanta because they're in a reasonable driving distance and with enough notice, I could do that. But I'd forgotten that I'd done that. So when when they emailed me about it, I just like assumed it was in Nashville and I said yes. And then when I checked the details later on, I saw it was in Louisville and I didn't realize that. But it was fine. I mean, it's only about a 2 hour drive from where I am. I'm like about 45 minutes from the Kentucky border. But what was interesting was that the other two artists on the lineup were also from Nashville and actually like live within 5 to 7 minutes from me. So it was sort of like a Nashville takeover of Louisville, which was kind of fun. And I've been able to stay in touch with so far one of the other artists. She lives just down the road. We're going to get together for dinner soon. And I've already booked her for a gig here for an art market that I run the music for. So that was a really nice way to build community, and also sort of reach an audience outside of Nashville, and the typical people that come out to see my shows. So the vibe was really great. The audience is they do a really good job of creating a great listening room, in my opinion. They really set like, here are expectations and the standards for the audience to really give the artist a good experience. And so I appreciate that. And I like the sort of unconventionality of some of the venues that they use as well.
I think stories I've heard, I think that listening experience kind of varies because it
Oh,
is,
really?
yeah. Like I have a good friend in Dallas Fort Worth, and he's got a new band with a female um, co-conspirator, and
Okay.
they did one, and yeah, and there were two other artists there, as you said, and he's a longtime studio engineer, so much of that work in Nashville, and he had a home studio before it was so easy to have a home studio, and so he got there and was telling, well, they were telling the story. I had them on the podcast recently, and he said that the PA that they were providing was just really not great, was not
Mhm.
ideal. So he said he looked at his partner, because they were just playing the two of them at this one. He said, "Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna we're not gonna play through the PA at all. We're gonna go 100% acoustic." And she's like, "What?"
Mm.
But they did it, and he said it worked out
Mhm.
really well because I think they were the third act to go on, and it really provided a big. Um, it helped him stand out a lot, but he
Mhm.
he only he only did that because he has so much experience with sound, both live and in a studio. And was just she was kind of lucky, that he has that, and she really appreciated it. But anyway, just I know from having a few conversations, like I said, there's been some really nice experiences, and some like okay, or like some people are like, "Nah, I wouldn't do that again." But I think
Mhm.
it's partly what you make of it, partly what your expectations are, and of course
Mhm.
partly the regional so far sounds folks that you're dealing with, and maybe how long have they been doing it, have they got it dialed in yet, and so forth.
Yeah, I think the first one I did was in Nashville, and it was a venue that hosts a lot of music. And so they had a stronger sound system, like a legit sound system for sure. This one in Louisville is not a typical music venue. And so whomever provided the sound system, it was not the same type of experience. And I will say that I did walk in, I was sort of like, okay, this could be interesting. It went better with the sound than I thought that it would, for what the setup that they had. But it was, I think my expectation had been set with the other venue that there would be sort of a more of a sound system. But I think the room that was in for Louisville didn't need a big sound system. I think that would have, I don't know, it was just sort of more like a general event space and like content creation type of space. So yes, I would agree with that actually, that I get now that it's not going to be consistent from show to show type of thing. And I guess I didn't have the understanding of that before the Louisville show. So now that and the thing is you also, you provide them, like you can tell them basically what kind, if it's going to be you solo or a duo, trio, or full band, like what your capabilities are from show to show. And I think based on that, they determine what kind of sound is needed, is my understanding. So they need to know like what you need. But again, I don't know if every venue is prepared to fully support that. And maybe that's something they need to take into consideration, it sounds like.
Yeah, I could just see the challenges like space, the space you're playing in is a big
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then obviously, is the sound system appropriate for that space? And I don't know, there's probably some questions and things you can ask without being too annoying to get a gauge on it. But even then, you know, if you commit to it already and then you find out it's going to be, well, at least if you know what you're walking into, you can maybe make some adjustments. It's not like you're going to show up with your own rig and say, "Hey, man, can I set my own piano?"
Right. I know.
but maybe the other thing too for artists that are listening to this later, if you're doing a So Far Sounds show, I suppose in this aspect, well, no, I was going to say you could treat it like you're doing a house concert at a venue for the first time, but So Far Sounds has certainly developed some of the venues and organizers have developed a bit of a reputation. So you could ask around, hey, has anybody ever done So Far Sounds, for instance, in Louisville, Kentucky? How was the
Mhm.
space? How was the sound? Any recommendations? Maybe that's like the only thing you can really, really do.
I think so. Yeah, I think that just the community of it and the word of mouth is probably, the best way, or asking directly. And again, I don't know, because they don't reveal the location until 36 hours before
Oh,
showtime.
right,
I guess
right.
I'm assuming they really have it booked far in advance, but maybe they don't, and they kind of don't know. There's a bit of it that's a mystery to me still, how it all works. But I think, yeah, just finding people who are also in that community and doing things,
Hmm.
and kind of picking their brains about it, I think would probably be the best way to figure that out.
Yeah.
Luckily, I play a lot of solo shows, for the most part. So, I'm usually able to accommodate, and I'm a loud singer also. So
That helps.
it does help. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at a rehearsal last night at a small studio for the first time, and with a percussionist that I drafted for an upcoming show, and he was gracious in letting us rehearse at his place, which was convenient for one of the other guys. And um, the my PA, my rehearsal PA, and even for a small gig is pretty nice. And it was not quite exactly the situation we had there, and the room was pretty boomy. I mean, my room's not like highly
Mm.
insulated, but I was having a tough time. I kind of blew my voice out a little. I mean, I
Mm.
sang through the night, but I was like, oh, yeah. Well, my guitar player, I asked him for some feedback on something I sang. He says, "Your voice sounds tired." I'm like, "Yeah, I think I'm singing too loud because I can't hear." If you do not yet have a website for your music, check out Bandzoogle. It was created to help musicians and bands build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Bandzoogle has amazing design options, a commission-free store to sell music, merch, tickets, and more, plus tools that can capture detailed fan data for you. Try it free at bandzoogle.com. Use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year.
I'm in a power pop rock band
Nice.
as well. Yeah, the space that we rehearse in, I always feel that way, and so I wear earplugs just so I can at least hear myself and not feel like I have to, try to hear over everything else 100%, and then you turn yourself up too much. Like there's a lot going on. And that's definitely the care to take that I continue to learn as a vocalist, when I'm playing with a band, because it's, it is few and far between, is just to not overextend, at rehearsal the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
I want to, because you want to really rehearse like you're going to perform and stuff, but you do have to take care as a vocalist to make sure that you can be healthy for that live performance.
Yeah,
So,
totally. In retrospect, I should have done like my friend at his So Far Sounds show and just not used a mic and maybe had, because we had an acoustic guitar, a bass, and a cajon, and I maybe should have just said, you know what, let's let's mic the acoustic ever so slightly and turn the bass way down. No mic on me, and
Hmm.
let's see how that goes. Probably would have been better.
We're
Um,
always learning, right? So
yeah, yeah, and you don't want to be like, I don't know, you just don't want to be a pain, right?
you don't, and then you have pain, as I, evolve, like we say, I feel like I am very accommodating, and I'm usually just sort of, I want everyone to be comfortable, and usually at my own expense. But I do think that it's a good exercise to also assert, you know, what your needs are, as a performer and as a vocalist. And especially if you're, a vocalist and fronting and you have to kind of be front and center and deliver that performance. I mean, it doesn't really serve anybody in the performance if your voice is tired, um, or you're not able to actually fully bring yourself to the performance because of all these other things that, if you just speak up, you can fix. I've been very timid in the past about expressing what my needs are sound wise and all of that. I'm not perfect at it now by any means, but I'm learning that it hasn't served me as an artist, and it doesn't serve the performance or the audience to not try to get it right or try to make it better.
Yeah, that's all probably really true. It is true. And I'm new at fronting and singing in this capacity. I've done a lot of singing behind a drum kit, occasionally
Mm.
in front of the drum kit, a little bit on guitar. But everyone I'm working with now is actually super accommodating. I probably shouldn't sweat about it. They actually seem like they're looking to me for, like, I think they feel like this is my thing. So they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
be supportive. So that's great. So I should just
That
take
is great.
advantage of it.
Yeah, and you'll get to know what you need, as you continue to do more of that. I think that it can be intimidating, but I think it is important to kind of work through some of those things. Because I find that if the sound is not right on stage, and you can't hear yourself, or you can't hear the key instruments that you take cues from or whatever, like, it creates a lot of panic. At least for me, it does. Then I'm just thinking about all those things, and I'm not really thinking about being present in my performance. And so, yeah, so I think it is worth trying to get it as right as you can to make everybody on stage as comfortable, including yourself, and not forsaking yourself and what you need to make sure that you can deliver what you need to.
It's good advice. Good advice. I'm curious to ask you about your experience in musical theater, and a little bit
Mm-hmm.
as well, maybe more so than I realized in the nonprofit sector. I read that you did work in these areas in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly I would think that musical theater is lending itself to the things you have done and will do musically, but maybe even working in nonprofit does as well. I don't know why I laugh, but it could greatly contribute to the things you're doing now. Can you talk about that?
Musical theater, I really was pursuing that when I was living in New York City after college. So I was right after college, I was working actually for a financial literacy nonprofit called Junior Achievement in New York City, and my role there was to train business volunteers to teach the programs to elementary, middle, and high school students, and then manage those volunteers through their journey of doing that. I left that job to actually pursue musical theater. So I got a different job that I was a little more flexible, and then I would go on auditions in New York City, which is grueling, I will say. And it's the kind of thing where you go and you're sitting in a room full of other people trying to do what you're doing for hours and hours and hours, waiting for your turn to be called. If you get that turn to be called to sing your thing for 30 seconds or do your 16 bars and get a thank you and nothing else. Maybe then you wait for a callback and you don't get feedback right away or ever. And I just found it to be, I hated that process. I really really hated that process. And it feels like a catcall where you definitely, you're just sometimes in a group and they're just going, you, not you, just based upon your look or whatever. And
Wow.
you don't even get to sing. And
We're
it's,
much too fragile for that kind of thing.
I know. And there's people that legit went to school for that and are very passionate and are, and I didn't go to school for that. And it was something that I just felt like I'm in New York. I like to sing and dance and perform. I probably should do this. It was more of how I approached it. But I realized in that process that I don't like acting and I'm sort of terrified to like act. I can sing and emote and dance and do all those things, but like I never wanted to speak, act. And then I thought that's probably not the mentality of someone who's pursuing a successful career in musical theater. And I should probably find a different avenue of entertainment. And that was through, I did end up getting a show. There was a musical on Broadway called The Civil War, and it had a national tour, etc. And then there was this sort of stripped down version of it that was called For the Glory, and it was being done in Gettysburg and kind of a stripped down production of the Civil War. So a lot of the music, but not the huge stage production of the actual musical. But still some of the key players who were in the musical on Broadway or in the touring cast. And so that was one audition that I had gone to, and I was running late from another audition and I had to run to it. And as soon as I got there, I was called in and I was sort of flustered or whatever, but it kind of disarmed me, I think, in a way. So anyways, I guess I did well enough. I got that show, and I moved to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to do this show for about 3 months or so. And it was a really great experience in the way, like doing 8 shows a week and getting a show up in 2 weeks and doing 8 shows a week for 3 months is very good training. So I was able to feel what that felt like and be in that rhythm and be amongst people who had been on Broadway or toured nationally or just really, really elite performers. And every day of that, I was like, they're going to see right through me. I'm going to get fired. Like, I don't know why I got this. Like, I don't know why I'm here. So there's a lot of imposter syndrome going on that I had to work through because I did not feel like I was at the same caliber, but I also had to, understand that they did see something and they hired me for a reason. It was a really good learning experience in that way, but I also felt through that I don't love acting, the acting aspect of things, and that terrifies me, and I probably should maybe think about pursuing music in a different capacity.
Well, it sounds really intense, but like an invaluable experience at the same time.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm still in touch with some of the cast members, who have gone on to have successful Broadway careers and do really great things. And I don't feel like I'm missing out.
And how long did you do it?
I pursued that for maybe just about 3 years. It took about 2 years of auditioning until I got that show. And then I did that one for 3 months. And then I did a little bit of auditioning for maybe 6 or 7 months after that when I got back, including actually, I did audition for In the Heights, Lin-Manuel Miranda's first musical.
Okay.
I did get a call back for that one. I did get called back to the dance audition, and then I didn't get, after the dance audition, I didn't get any calls back. But there was a girl who I worked with at the gym that I was working at, and she was a dancer, and I remember her being in that cast. She did get in that show and did make it through the workshops and onto Broadway and all of that. But yeah, you just get out your backstage, newspaper and look for all the auditions, and then you just hunker down for hours and hours and get your 16 bars ready and try to stay warm and vocally and go through all of that. So it was definitely a good learning experience and a good way to weed things out, I guess, of what I'm maybe meant to do.
Yeah, and from the description, the elements that you shared with me, it sounds like, 15 years of experience worthy of doing what you're doing now to like prepare you for some of the aspects of what you do now, from everything from like looking for gigs to dealing with the inevitable rejection here and there, So, but anyway, yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've heard actors talk about just the whole process, like auditioning, and some just can't take it. And then also, when you get the jobs, this is, not a different arena of acting altogether, but, waiting around. Well, you mentioned that too in what you were doing, is like a lot of waiting.
A lot of waiting, yes.
Man,
And interestingly enough, though, like through, looking for, auditions and things that way in backstage, I saw this audition for a singer showcase. And so I went to that, and that turned out to actually be like more of a songwriting workshop. And that was my real first foray into a songwriting process from, start to finish in terms of writing the song, working with someone on the arrangement and recording and having like a finished product. That was through that process, and being still kind of one foot in musical theater and looking for other singing opportunities is kind of how I also got kind of hooked into to songwriting and piqued my interest in that a lot more, apart from just being a singer.
cool. Let's go back to your single, Poison in the Water. I'm curious to know what your release plans are for this year, strategy if you've gone that far, and yeah, just what more are you planning to do, and what are you planning to do with this one single?
Oh, all good questions. I would love to tell you that I have all of the things worked out and mapped out. I do not. I am so it took so long to finally get my head and the funds together to record this EP. And I like honestly did not think past the music for a really long time. And then people were started asking me sort of like, how are you going to market? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to like make a good product here. The other stuff is not it doesn't bring me a lot of energy. It's not my wheelhouse. So I believe in leverage, and finding people who it is their wheelhouse and brings them energy, and delegating to do that. So I'm working with a PR company to kind of take care of some of those things, right off the bat, and living in the playlisting world, which really wasn't a thing last time when I released Providence. So that's kind of new for me, is getting into all of that. So I've really hired someone to help me with those things. And so I can focus on, what I know and like to do. So really that's the arm that's moving right now, and getting through the single and kind of getting some local press going on, and just working on what I can do around content, which is also something that for me is a muscle I really have to work at. It's not something that I love to do, but I understand that's necessary. And then looking at maybe releasing a video in February. I'm sort of on the fence about that, but that might be part of the strategy. If not, it may be a second single. Still kind of marinating on that. I've got an EP release date. I've booked the EP release show just yesterday, actually. That was really actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. And we can maybe dig into that a little bit more, my thoughts around some roadblocks around that. But really, for me, it's going to be about getting the single on some playlists to kind of get some new interest in my music, get it out there beyond my local market, and really kind of give people a reason to follow me and to continue to listen, and anticipate the release of the full EP. And then, really focus on putting together a really great live show. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I would love to say that I have the rest of the year mapped out, but I don't. Some of the goals are to maybe play some festivals, and maybe do like a little bit of a couple of different 1 week or 2 week tours here and there throughout the year. I'm not exactly sure what the timeline will be on all of that just yet.
Well, one bite at a time, right?
Yes, I have a household to manage. I've got a kid, I've got jobs, I've got all the things, and really doing this heavily DIY. So I'm trying not to overwhelm myself, because I know myself, and I'll just get paralyzed in all of the things to do, and then not get done any of the things I need to do. So
I understand. This conversation I mentioned with the artist from just yesterday, we were having a somewhat similar conversation at the end of our talk, and just like the whole thing about doing too much, too much doing, and and all the things that we have to do. But I've spoken with a lot of musicians just over the last year, and you are not alone. And actually, you sound like you're really planning ahead. I think it's a testament to maturity, professional experience, and also some experience that you gathered in the arts from musical theater and maybe elsewhere that is like making you think of all this stuff. And you're in a good place too, right? Because there are a lot of people around to bounce things off of, and good for you for getting help.
Yeah, I have a crippling inability to ask for help. So when I finally do, it's because I'm really hitting a wall and starting to unravel. So, I really just started to heed the advice of people that have done more than I have, and that, I had a lot of conversations. It was a kind of a long journey for me to actually press go on those things, but I know that I would not, I'm doing all this work to put out this EP and to make a good product. And then for nobody to hear it doesn't make any sense. So I really needed to bite the bullet and just do those, like hire the publicist and kind of put those things into action so that I could, so people could hear it and I won't just sit on it. And my mother will love it and nobody else otherwise. So
Exactly.
so it was just sort of necessary. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a really interesting topic indeed, and I think your schedule permitting, I may follow up with you on the topic of your release show and the challenges and the things that you learned. Because I had a conversation, the pair that I mentioned that did the So Far Sounds show, we talked a lot about their release show, and I think a lot of people would be interested in sort of the mind share on that. So yeah, I may be following up with you on that. For now, I want to wrap us up with a couple of questions that fit in the category of left field.
Okay.
All right. So just whatever comes to mind. It doesn't even have to pertain to music. And if nothing comes to mind, you can take a pass. But
Okay.
First one is, what's slowing you down the most?
Oh gosh. Money.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Funds.
Yeah. Where do you, can you elaborate a little bit, just like in terms of, I suppose, like where those funds would be going, or just anything you can add to that?
Yeah. So, where funds would be going definitely would be to getting ready to record more music. I've kind of put a lot of my eggs in this EP basket. So, also a music video. That's one of those things that I would love to do something really good quality for that. That it's just not in the cards at the moment, and I'm kind of circling around some other ideas that I can do to make something happen. But that would be something that I would probably be moving much more forward on. And then I think beyond continued publicity and being able to pay for those other things after the EP is released, just to continue to keep it in top of mind. I think about a tour. I would love to be able to do that and have a band, tour with at least part of a band, or to get something together that's not just a solo thing. That costs money. And that's also a timing thing too. Again, my husband has a small business and he travels, so I solo parent relatively often throughout the year, and my son's only 11, so just timing wise of when I can make that space in my life for that to happen. So we're always kind of game planning, but really the bigger barrier would be just the money to be able to do it, to be able to know that I can still help support my household, which is obviously a big priority, but also fund my music. I find the balance between the two, quite challenging, which is why it's taken me so long to get this project off the ground. Just to be able to have, the funds to do that. Again, my crippling inability to ask for help. I do not do a GoFundMe or Kickstarter. I just find I don't like asking people for help. So I've just, done this with some generosity of time from my peers, but also just self-funded all of this so far.
Yes, I've heard that story before. And there's also, the execution facet of crowdfunding,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yes.
or just, finding investors who believe in you. So I get it.
Right.
But yeah, I guess it's a mindset thing as well, right?
Yeah. And I really have to give, like, I really like things to be like, time is of the essence is sort of my baseline. Like, I like things to be like, let's just do this, let's get it done. And some of those things are just out of your control. And so this process has taught me a lot of patience and persistence to kind of stay moving forward in some capacity, but also knowing that not everything is going to get done in the time frame that I have in my head. And I have to like be okay with that and find ways to still be growing and moving forward in the midst of when I feel like I'm at like a stalemate. And so I think, yeah, the timing of things can be a challenge, but money is also one of those things that's just perpetually, trying to chip away at. So
It's a thing.
it's a thing. I know. I mean, I did play Mega Millions on New Year's Eve, and I think I won like $14. So,
well, hey, better than a stick
things
in the
are
eye.
looking up.
Could be an omen, a positive omen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then lastly, what inspires you?
I am always inspired by just the lives of people around me, both in their challenges and in the trenches or in the challenges of what I'm going through, but also just kind of everyday things. I'm also inspired by people who are making really cool music and in their own way and on their own time. I'm just always looking at people that, gosh, like they're just rooted in so much of their own sincerity with their music or what their art form is. And I'm always striving to kind of make sure that I'm still always rooted in what's authentic to me. So that's always very inspiring to me.
I like that. All right, so I know it's TraceePerrinMusic.com and Tracee Perrin Music on Facebook and Instagram. And for those of you that can type fast enough, TraceePerrin, Tracee Perrin. And links for that will be in the show notes, of course, as usual. Is there anywhere specific that you want to tell people to go to follow the release of your forthcoming single?
Yeah, I think the best place is going to be Instagram.
I knew it.
Again, like I can only handle so much, so I'm not on TikTok. I have a YouTube channel, but I think Instagram is the best place to follow.
Good for you for trying to keep it focused. I have had a TikTok account. I'm canceling this for a number of reasons, partly because I don't have time. And the other one that I'm looking at, because I'm getting notifications now, is Threads. I'm like, I think I'm just going to close that one too. I don't have time, even though it was like nothing to get it going because of Instagram. But good for you. That's the way to start out. So when you get more help, you can go into those other areas.
Exactly. It took me a while to finally get on Instagram and like get into a little bit of a rhythm. So I'm just going in with that.
Well, it was a pleasure talking with you. Thanks.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope we talk again.
Thank you for listening. You can leave us feedback, questions, comments, complaints at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. If you love this podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the many ways of showing your love and support. Your support does indeed equal love. The series music you heard in this episode is New Gods Part 2 by yours truly. Find links for all the places to hear the full version with vocals by yours truly at rabonzo.com. Find links for all the people and things talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com. Peace, love, and a whole lot of gratitude.